Welcome to Cinematalkraphy. We watch movies with you so you don't have to.
Welcome to Cinematography. I'm your host, Roberto Villegas, joined as always by...
Your other host, Brent Hughes.
How's it going, sir?
It's going all right. It's late.
It is late. We just got out of the last screening here on Friday for the new remake, if you will, of Godzilla.
Gojira,
the god creature. That was such bullshit, by the way. We call it Godzilla. It's a god monster. It's like, what the why? Okay, here's the question. Why would you... I guess this is now the question. If you were a PhD and...
All right.
and you
real life.
Right, real life. And you had to name a creature, if you will. Why would you go about saying, like, why would you call it anything but a real... Like, why would you call it Godzilla? Like, why would you, like, we've named it this.
That's a dope-ass name.
It is dope-ass, but I'm saying, I guess my point is this.
Yeah.
Is, if I were a scientist, and I've been studying this thing for a while, and I've been studying all these, monster creatures, whatever.
Sure.
You'd think I'd have, like, a genome at least, like... I mean,
realistically, sure.
Yeah, it's just like we've named it this, but the boys in the lab call it Godzilla, that kind of thing, because it's just it's okay. So here is my ultimate problem with this movie.
All right.
It's the kind of movie that seems like it's serving two masters.
All right, elaborate.
Okay, so what I say two masters is we've got this human drama element, or attempt at that.
Sure.
And then we've got this, like, in the background, the monsters fighting.
Yeah.
And then near the end of the movie, we get the full, battle royale. But for me, it just felt like it was, as we got to that point, I mean, I was glad to see it, but I kept realizing, oh my God, they're putting this as human drama here because they feel like they have to.
Maybe. So the dude who directed this, I forgot his name. He did Monsters.
Right.
Right. Did you see that?
No, I did not. I assume you did. You see it?
Yeah, it's really good. It's really interesting. I think it's far more interesting if you know a bit about the production of it.
Right.
Because he did it all kind of experimentally, and it was very cool. And actually, like, the monster design and stuff, you could tell that he had quite a bit of influence over that, because it's
very similar.
It's pretty similar to the stuff in Monsters, which I enjoyed. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe you'll have to help me suss this out, because I think this is the first reaction that we've done where I haven't had entirely solidified opinions about coming out of.
The thing is that going into this, I didn't know what to expect. So I basically had said, all right, if I'm going to see anything, I want to see monsters destroying a city, whatever city that is. I want to see monsters fight, destroy, and res humanity to the ground.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna get destruction porn, let's make it fun. But what I got at times was this like almost we have to justify why things exist in this monster world. And I get the idea that we have to understand why Godzilla exists and why these monsters come from whatever.
Sure.
But it just felt like at times when they kept putting the human drama, like it was just slowing the action down for the sake of adding drama, for the sake of having people that, weren't coming here for Godzilla. And it almost feels like where Pacific Rim, a kind of similar movie, similar vibe, may have just, embraced that silliness and that sort of part. This really tried desperately to have no, we've got substance. We've got more than just monsters fighting. We got Bryan Cranston for about 30 minutes. We got Ken Watanabe just really looking, at things and saying every so often the word.
Well, he's just he's there to say the line from the trailer.
Yeah,
and then
that's
he's
all
like,
he is.
Well,
I think that's the problem, is that it wasn't so much that it was ridiculously silly or anything like that. It was just the fact for me that the human drama parts felt like they were there to sort of make this feel like a quote-unquote movie, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So I am not a particularly big fan of monster movies,
Right.
Or kaiju films, I believe is the term.
That is the correct term, correct.
Right. So,
Well, then what did you feel about the human drama part? Because I know you're big on that.
Well, I'm really a really big fan of Elizabeth Olsen, so I was like, I mean, anything that could get her a little bit more screen time is fine by me. And Ken's great.
Yeah, of course. Ken Watanabe's fucking pimp.
And Brian's great.
For the amount of time he was on the screen.
I mean, I feel like none of them were given the material that they could have delivered upon.
Yes.
I feel like they were underutilized for what it could have been.
Right.
And I think at the end of the day, like the biggest problem about the film is just that it doesn't have the clarity that it needs in either direction.
No, and that's my big issue is that, okay, fine, I understand why. I mean, because obviously fans of Godzilla want that destruction. We want the monsters fighting. We want Godzilla versus Mothra or Rodan or Mechagodzilla or Ghidorah, whatever monster you wanted to fight. And so coming to this, that's what everyone expected was Godzilla's going to come and it's going to fucking destroy Tokyo or San Francisco or Nevada, wherever the hell it's going to be. It's going to destroy the hell out of things. And we did get that destruction. The only problem is that the times where it showed a lot of the action was like this mythical, magical television coverage of like, we have footage of the monster and we are live broadcasting it, even though it's emitting an EMP field that pretty much wipes out any electronics.
Yeah.
And it was trying so desperately to set up something. But every time it showed the battle sequences until like the latter part, and I say like the last 30 minutes essentially, it just kept showing in the background like, no, we should concentrate on the human element and the acting. And the problem is, it just wasn't like the acting was not terrible. It just wasn't that good.
Yeah, I think maybe one of the big problems is maybe the director is kind of like me, wherein you say, okay, yeah, we can have this destructive element, but really, how do you get the audience to care? Because I wouldn't care if it were mostly just that, and I know some people would just love to go and tune out and be like, yeah, yeah, MonsterMania, oh yeah.
I'm sorry,
and I can't get behind that. Maybe someone in charge behind this movie couldn't fully get behind that either, so they try to salvage it in some way that just didn't work.
I think that's the problem. Is like there are ways you can do that. Like there are ways you can get the human element and the monster still in there. I've only seen bits and pieces of it, but I've always heard Cloverfield did a great job of that.
Yeah, it did pretty good.
And I know you can do that with Godzilla movies too. It really requires, like, I think the problem is like you're right, is that a lot of the times when they had our human actors in there, they were so underutilized. It would be, it would almost be as if our main character, Ford, was essentially at the right place at the right time at every moment of his life. Like he was there when the what is the fucking monsters, the Aunt Moonon or what I forgot what their names are. The monster. I don't know. The insert villain for Godzilla here.
Sure.
Basically, when they went to the Genera power plant there. And sort of borrowed in that he was at that point in time as a little kid, which is kind of funny. Then he comes back to Japan to bail his father out of jail, and he's there at the right moment. Like it almost felt like he was just at the right place at the right time, as opposed to like he was a monumental character. Like he just happened to be like, yeah, I happen to have been here 15 years ago. What's going on now? Yeah, I happen to be a bomb tech. What are you doing? Yeah, I was on the train a while back. Somehow I made it here to San Francisco alive. How's it going? Like, he just happened to be at, like, it wasn't so much that he had gotten there by force of will. He just sort of got lucky each time.
Yeah, there was a lot of coincidence, and for me, I'm really easy to suspend disbelief. So I don't think any of that immediately took me out of it or anything, but I think it's the kind of thing where subconsciously it just kind of builds up.
And that's the thing. That's why I didn't mean to, like the first time going around, like, okay, that's fine, that's cool. We've got to get into the action some way. We've got to do. I guess what it is that I always hate when movies try their best to add pathos when there's really not much pathos there. Like one of my big pet peeves in films is when you have a character die for the sake of trying to get a strong emotional reaction, even though we haven't really spent a lot of time with that character. Like when Bryan Cranston died, all we knew is he's the father. Like I think honestly, what's funny is I think the most emotional thing in the movie was when Bryan Cranston's wife died. And not because we saw him die, her die or anything. It was the fact of the matter that her face is right against the glass as he had just hit the button and essentially sealed her fate. But every other thing that kept trying to add, like, oh, look, Brian's dead. Okay, we didn't really spend much time with his kid, and even if we did, we didn't really get that much background beyond the fact that he's a soldier coming back home, and he's got a little boy and a wife and all this kind of crap. And I guess my problem with the movie is that it never, until about the very end is when the threat became anything real. And maybe because they kept concentrating so much on let's take the army out here, let's not show the monsters, let's sort of keep them in the background, whereas there has to be a way, and there is a way, to put both the monsters and the humans in the foreground and have it, have some type of action. And maybe I felt that there was too many threads going on.
Maybe. Yeah, I think I just keep coming back to the fact that I don't think it's so much the balance of the elements at play. I think it's just the effectiveness of the elements that didn't 100% work for me. Yeah, I don't know.
No,
I'm still absorbing.
Well, it's
things.
a tricky thing. I mean, it's a move, because ultimately the big issue with this film, I really think, is, like you said, the underutilization of people. Because again, these aren't bad actors. We've seen Emily Olsen do great stuff. We've seen Ken Watanabe do. Oh, sorry, was it Elizabeth Olsen? Sorry, again, Emily Olsen.
Please, Elizabeth Olsen.
We've seen her do some great stuff. We've seen Ken Watanabe do fantastic things. I mean, even him in Inception was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So it's not like we haven't seen these guys do something unique, and they're not bad actors. It just felt like I said, it felt like it was serving two masters. Like it was trying to make a real movie, quote unquote, and still try to appease the fans of Godzilla in some way. And I felt by doing that, they really, really dropped the ball at times. You just wanted to say that so badly.
Yeah.
Because it's not. The thing is, it's not a bad movie.
Yeah, because the thing I don't want to do is I don't want to give the impression that like I hated it through and through or anything.
No, neither did I.
Like I think it was enjoyable. It just wasn't. It wasn't exceptional.
That's the point. That's the thing. Is that it was an enjoyable film. When destruction kicked in and when fighting kicked in, holy shit, do they just destroy San Francisco? They just res that to the ground. When it attacks Japan, Tokyo's gone. Everyone dies, kind of thing. And when it does those kind of scenes, and when we see that kind of combat, it's great. And when we see really good acting, like I said, Bryan Cranston at the very beginning, we could see a potential of what this movie could have been. I think the big issue was it just didn't get to one point very quickly. And I think if we had kind of kept the threads kind of, if we had kept, for example, just concentrating on either the family, let the father have died there in the nuclear blast or something, the first one, just concentrating on Ford at the very get-go, like almost him kind of our main focus, not trying to bounce around, but just kind of kept with him as he interacts with the monsters, I think it would have been a clearer movie. And we would have gotten a little bit more a connection with one character if we just didn't bounce around so much. Possibly.
I'm still trying to figure out exactly how the movie didn't hit, so I can't fully say like that would solve the problem.
No. But the thing is, I don't think that there's one thing that can solve the problem. I think the big issue with the movie, and I guess this is the big issue with a lot of these sort of fan-centric kind of films at times, is that at the end of the day, these are huge budget films, and they got to make their money back. And as much as geeks want to say that we rule the world, which we kind of do, we don't have the kind of sway to pay back a $200-some-odd million film. And I think the big issue that's going to happen, we'll see come Monday and all the actuals are in and all that fun jazz, how effective this was. But I think the issue with a lot of these sort of films is that they go to a grandiose scale because that's what we want to see as fans, and then they realize, oh shit, we've got to bring in the normal people who have no idea what the hell this is.
I personally, I don't think they're gonna have much of a problem bringing in normal people. I think like it's gonna perform well, especially opening. I feel like it's gonna do pretty well. I don't know if it's gonna have legs now that people are gonna see it and be like, I don't know.
That's the point, and I don't know if it's gonna have legs because.
But I know tons of people who aren't into films and aren't into Godzilla who are like, yeah, I totally want to see that. That looks kind of cool.
And ultimately, I think that's the thing is that I kind like there's a part of me, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of it, that kind of film. There's a part of me that wished, like maybe what they could have done is almost half monster, half
human
hybrid. Well, because like there is ways to do drama, and then there's ID4.
Sorry, I just keep thinking of like of hatching out of one of those eggs. We just have like Godzilla's body and Ken's face, and he's just like the arrogance of man.
That was such an awesomely cheesy line at the same time. I love that line and how terrible it is.
Yeah,
the arrogance of man is that we think we're in control of nature or some shit like that.
It almost feels like it was shot specifically for the trailer.
Like again,
it fits perfectly
that's
into
why.
that.
I think again, it's not. It's not saying this is a bad movie. It is a
serviceable.
It's serviceable. The question goes as this: is it? Are we? I guess I'll ask you this. I know you're still bored.
Who else are you gonna ask? Just like, well, I guess there are a couple of cars you could ask around here, but I don't think.
Hey, car, do you want to answer the question? I think this is terrible. Thank you, Prius.
Okay.
Maybe I should ask my Prius because my Prius is from Japan. Maybe my Prius will have
unique
some answers.
perspective.
It'll be a unique perspective on things.
Yeah,
and it'll be a response in Japanese, which I was actually very happy that they at least did include Japan in the mix of things.
Yeah, totally.
Because ultimately we came back to Nevada. Okay, that's that is the question now. What
is this a question you're gonna ask me before?
Maybe. What are the fucking chances that we would have our monster head all the way to Nevada, and that like what are the chances of all this, like everything that happened in this movie felt, and maybe this is what's happening now that I'm just digesting the movie, that I am now, my suspension of disbelief is now like lifting, and I'm wondering now, like what are the odds of like these two M creatures, because I know it's started with an M, mitosis or mono, whatever the fuck they are. Mitosis is actually a fucking biology thing. What are the chances that both a male and a female survive from this era, and B one would go to Nevada in the United States and one would go to Japan?
I mean, I don't know. I think if you ask your standard American person, like, hey, what do you think about radiation? They'll probably be like, well, Hiroshima. And if they really think about it, they'll say
Mexico.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, no, I mean, I guess so. I guess my problem, like I said, I keep coming back to this, and maybe this is why I don't like, much like you, I'm still absorbing this film, but in a different way, because I'm going, why is this movie for me not the movie I wanted? And what is it that I truly, truly want out of a Godzilla film? Because I come to this mindset of like, when it comes to, Michael Bay films, we always go the same kind of direction. Of like, oh man, these are terrible films. They're just destruction, and there's no emotion and things like that. And then I come to this movie and I'm having the same kind of feeling. But then I go, well, then what is it I want out of a Godzilla movie? What is it I want out of one of these movies?
That's a good question, because like I said, I'm not particularly a kaiju person, not really a Godzilla person, so I didn't come in here with like any expectations or anything like that. And
I'm somewhat of a Godzilla fan. I'm somewhat of a kaiju fan. Like, I love the idea behind it, the idea that Godzilla, in terms of its history, was a allegory for nuclear power and things like that.
Yeah.
And I like that idea as a story. Like, I love that as a fiction writer and a fiction kind of person. But that being said, what is it that I want out of a modern film like that? Do I even need a modern film like that? And I think that's what the big problem is that a lot of people coming into this are going to come from so many different viewpoints of what they want, and I don't know if everyone's going to be satisfied.
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I don't think everyone will be. So it'll probably
Go on.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like who specifically is this gonna resonate with?
This is what I'm trying to say is that I don't know who that is because it's not resonating with me as much as I hoped it would,
right?
And it's surely not resonating with you,
not particularly,
and you're not necessarily the audience it was geared towards, that kind of thing,
right?
But it's that question of, well, then if it's not resonating with you, the audience that kind of just coming in there like, well, it looks kind of cool, and it's not resonating with me, with the audience like, oh my God, Godzilla's back on the big screen. Then what does this movie mean? Like, I get it's going to make a good initial splash just because it's the new movie, but what does that say about the future of these kind of films?
I don't know. I know that I think it was the first trailer that was released. It had that fantastic 2001 score mixed in. I kind of, in my mind, I was like, man, it would be really cool if this were kind of some like weird cerebral experience that I know it's not gonna be.
Right.
But that would be kind of cool. And I don't know. I think maybe this style of movie is just, well, it all comes down to this, because it's the question of whether this style of movie is outdated and not resonant with people, or if just this execution wasn't great.
Well, because that comes the thing is, I don't know if this style of movie is outdated. I think when it comes to this movie, the big issue is that it just doesn't know what kind of film it wants to be, and it doesn't have the guts to be either one. Like, if it had the guts, for example, to be the cerebral kind of thing, then so be it. Be that movie. If you want to be the sort of,
which I don't think that movie exists.
No,
like,
I don't think it
anywhere.
No, but if you want it to be, for example, a big giant monster movie where we have two people fighting, two giant monster people, that kind of thing, then be that movie. But the problem is, because it's in this sort of, we have to try to do both because we want money, that it doesn't take that chance. And I think by not taking that chance, it's not going to resonate with either one, because it's only this kind of partial, like, well, we squished this part together, and we got this.
Well, I guess that brings the question, if it did go all in as this big monster brawl movie, do you think you would have come out a bit more satisfied?
I think I might have, because especially near the end, where I started to see, we finally get to see, Godzilla's atomic fire breath, and just boom,
yeah,
but everything
that was
else.
Cool.
We see just literally buildings being torn down. I'm like, every time that happened, it was cool. Like, I think my worst moment of the movie was I saw Godzilla and the monster fighting, and then the doors close, and then we cut to the fucking Ford, like, doing something like, I guess I gotta drop the bomb. I'm like, God damn it, why didn't you show them fighting? Why didn't you close the door? I understand why you closed the door as that perspective, but why not cut back to the monster? And I think it was just the idea that we had to have, and I get we have to have a human connection, I get that, but it was the idea that it almost felt like we have to have it because we need to force it in so that we have it. It never felt like it belonged there. And maybe that's my thing, is that if it felt like it belonged at times, I think I wouldn't have cared. It'd been like, oh, this is cool, we're now ramping up to something awesome. But because every time they'd get to something awesome picture-wise, they'd cut it back to a slow moment. And they'd kind of go like, oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. And then finally end like, all right, fine. Open the floodgates, and that's when everything fights. It just felt like they were forcing this human element there just because they wanted to try their damnedest to have a connection.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for holding off the monsters until later in the film. I think that can be pretty effective.
Right.
So the question is like, how do you fill the early half of the movie? And you can try and develop characters and get a connection through that, but then it's how do you sustain that connection once it switches over into a monster movie? And I think that's a really difficult and delicate balance to find. And I don't think this did that fully well, but I think so. I guess at the end of the day, if it were just a monster movie, I might enjoy it a little bit more than how it currently is, but not a ton more. Probably not appreciably more. But I think if they just happen to stumble upon an incredible movie and all of the elements worked in unison with each other, I think that would have been my ideal. Like, I would have enjoyed that far more than just a monster movie,
and honestly, I would have
more
too.
than this.
And I would have too.
If they just figured out how to make it work.
And that's the thing. Like, I'm okay with human elements being in there. I don't need it to be purely monster fighting, that kind of thing. It's just essentially make the stakes important. Because once you bring the monsters in, stakes are high. Everything's fucking going to hell. But make me believe that at any point, like, I guess my thing is, I never felt at any point that my main human characters were going to die. I never felt that the wife was ever going to die. I never felt like the kid was going to die. I never felt like the only time I felt Ford was going to die at the very end when he saw Godzilla kind of go to sleep, and he's like, well, fine, I guess both our heroes now go to sleep, that kind of thing. And that was about it. And because again, as the movie ends, we have Godzilla, going around the town, and the fucking camera is following it because we always got a camera on Godzilla, as opposed to like a decent fucking real shot in there. It says, King of the Monsters, Savior of the City, question mark?
Question mark.
Because it's the idea of being like, we're going to have another Godzilla movie, and you're going to love it. And I think that's where I find the big issue is that it felt like it was trying its damnedest to be a Hollywood movie as opposed to a good movie, if that makes any sense. And again, it's not a horrible movie. It's not a bad movie. It's totally watchable. You can totally go see it in theaters. It's one of those kind of movies that, like, if I didn't have to see it for this reaction, I would have saw it like matinee kind of thing.
If I didn't have to see it for this reaction, I would have waited until maybe it hit Netflix Instant, and then I probably would have watched it late one night and been like, hey, that was an all right movie.
That's his point.
That was all right.
That kind of thing. Like, if I, it's funny because I was at Fry's earlier today, and I was with some friends walking by the televisions, and they had one of the Transformer movies on. I guess it was the second one. And I found myself getting sucked into watching it. I have no desire to watch the movie. I've watched it, like, this looks terrible. But there is a lot of action going on and things like that. And I realized, probably with Godzilla, if that had been like I was walking by and Fry's watching it, I would have probably watched it that way. Like, I would have watched on Netflix and not been disappointed. And I'm not disappointed per se. I'm just like, wow, I really wish I could have rented this movie as opposed to go to watch it in theaters.
Yeah, maybe that's the kind of thing where, going to the theater is such this experience that you're dedicating your money, you're dedicating your time, you're dedicating your attention. It's becoming this kind of event emotionally and mentally. And if it were just a convenient experience, then you'd be like, oh, that was fine. But here at this kind of almost high risk scenario of seeing it in theaters, it just didn't meet the level that you needed it to be to fully have justified that risk.
Like, why is it like? Because again, when we get to the action, it's awesome, and it's definitely a spectacle, and it's definitely cool. It's just there's not a heck of a whole lot of it, and when they show it, a lot of the times, it's almost like it's a background element for these humans to talk about from their command centers because it's cheaper on the budget to have it smaller, and we don't have to, up the CGI that much. We have to make it kind of look real. And I think that's my big issue is that it never felt like the kind of movie that I could justify saying, all right, this was worth coming to do a theater experience. Because again, if I saw it rental, fuck, I'd be fine and be like, that was an all right movie. It wasn't bad. I would have probably said at the time, like, it would have been okay if I saw it in theaters, not realizing that my person now watching it then is like, I wish I'd saw that rental because it would have looked I think the thing, it would look just as good on my television. I did the preface. We did watch this in 2D, so we have no judgment on how the 3D elements worked or how it was in IMAX. If it was in IMAX.
Yeah. What did you think of the sound design?
I thought that was great. I really thought that they updated Godzilla's shriek perfectly fine. It had that fine balance of sounding real and sounding a little bit like the Japanese cheesy one. I really, to be honest, what I really dug a lot of
was that neck jiggle.
Yes, the neck jiggle
from Godzilla. That's great.
What I really dug a lot was the monster design. I thought the monster design was spot on top as all hell. Like, those monsters looked menacing. They looked like pretty much they will destroy anything in their path, and they did. But sound design was great. A lot of the times when we had are monsters moving around. They all did really good vocal effects and things like that. But primarily what I really enjoyed was just how they looked and felt. Like they felt like they were real things.
Yeah. Especially Godzilla. Godzilla was exceptional. And like I said, I'm going to attribute a lot of that design to the director just because it's very similar to some of his previous stuff.
Well, yeah, that makes sense for sure. We're pretty much out of time here, so let's give our final thoughts on this movie.
Also, one
Go
last
for it.
thing. What did you think about the guy who fell asleep next to me?
I was about to say the same thing. So in our theater experience, we were here at the Alamo Drafthouse here at Slaughter Lane, as we usually are, because it's a midway point between where Brandt and I live, so to speak. Near about half a second, like maybe like near the close of the end, I hear this rhythmic kind of sound. Like, and I'm like, I go, is that the movie? That can't be the movie. And I go, someone's asleep. Motherfucker fell asleep in Godzilla.
Yeah, the dude next to me was asleep for probably 10 to 15 minutes.
Maybe that's the.
It was kind of annoying.
Maybe that says something about the movie.
Well, to be fair, it's also a really late showing.
Fair enough.
But I think if you're going to come to a late showing, come to a late showing with a little bit of energy.
Yeah, I mean, because it was such a, like...
I say that fully guilty of sounding like I'm half asleep during most of our reactions.
Well, it's because
I'm just so drained from watching the movie.
When you're emotionally drained, you give it your all, Brandt, and rightfully so.
I try.
But yes, that's right. But yeah,
but I don't fall asleep during the movie.
No one. Maybe.
Why would you do that to yourself? You paid money to come see this thing.
What's the last movie you ever almost fell asleep in?
The last movie I did fully fall asleep in was Transformers 3. It was the one with the racist robots.
Right.
Whichever one that one was.
Right.
Two? I think it was 2.
Yeah, 2.
Yeah, we went and saw it at a drive-in theater.
Oh,
it was a double feature with Up.
Right.
And I sat through Up
because Up was awesome.
It was the second time I saw Up, and I was like, this is great. And then Transformers came on, and I was just out for like half the movie.
I think the last movie, I'm trying to figure out.
But I was in a car, so I wasn't annoying other people.
No, fair enough. Yeah. But I don't think I've ever
fallen. Also, it was a terrible movie.
Oh yeah, it's a terrible movie. I don't think I've ever fallen asleep in a movie, but there have been times I've almost fallen asleep, and it's usually when it's like I think what was it, something of the not Silence of the Lambs, but like the Sacrificial Lamb or whatever, was some Matt Damon U.S. government movie. I forgot what the fuck it's called.
Oh, weird. I don't know.
I almost fell asleep to that, and it was like Matt Damon as like a FBI or some type of government agent. That was just terrible movie.
Yeah.
But that being said, with Godzilla, I guess my final thought on the movie is it's not bad. It's just, man, I wish you would have done it better.
Yeah, it's just kind of disappointing to see how much potential it could have had.
I think that's it.
Right.
It's one of those movies where I'm coming into it hoping that you figured out the formula. Because I don't know the formula. I'm not going to claim to say, I know the solution, this is what you should have done, because I don't know the answer. I know that there has to be an answer, because only because I know that those elements are cool enough to do something interesting. It's, having a giant monster destroy a city can make for an interesting movie of some sort. You can have great actors acting scenes and whatever. It's just this didn't do it.
I know the answer.
What's that?
Every role portrayed by Elizabeth Olsen. And there you go.
Well, what about Bryan Cranston?
Elizabeth Olsen.
Okay, can we have Bryan Cranston?
Just like 3D motion track her face onto Bryan Cranston's face.
Can we have Bryan Cranston's voice there too?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, because I like Bryan Cranston in this movie. I really dug him in this movie. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, he's great.
He is great. Well, that's it for now. We're gonna end it here. Brandt, thank you so much for joining me on this late movie.
Yep.
Where can people find you online these days?
Yo, you can check me on the Twitter sphere. Twitter.com/Gatowag, or you can look for me, Brandt Hughes, BRANDTHEGHES, and I'm on like all over the places. And you know what? just go watch Scam School, because like I edit those, and you should just check it out, and then like it, and you know you should probably download like more of the things on CosmicRadio.TV. You should really just find anything that even has a remote like tangible association with me, and you should just really pump those numbers up.
If you want to make it even more fun, just go to Scam School and watch the ads. Just repeatedly watch the ads on loop, because that is where Brandt's magic really shines, in my opinion. Of course, you can find me. I'm at Vincent404 on the Twitters. You want to look at our previous episodes, our other commentaries, and some of our other reactions, go to our website, CosmicRadio.TV/Cinematalkraphy. There you'll find links to show notes, previous episodes, the Twitter account, which is Cinematalkraphy as well.
Yep.
And anything else we're at. And, of course, other shows and networks, such as my other podcast, my so-called 8-Bit Life.
And you can email us at, like that remix, you can email us at cinematography@gmail.com.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts on Godzilla, what movies you'd like to hear us do reactions for.
Unless it's short, then send us a Twitter.
Yes.
All right? Let's keep that separated.
Yes. Short messages under 140 characters, Twitter. Anything long form, email.
I say that like I'm really incensed that somebody sent me a really short email, but nobody sent any emails in. So I just don't want to discourage anybody from using the appropriate means to contact us.
Find the appropriate channel for your things. Thank you so much, guys. Take care.